Hello. In this video, we're going to look at two different problems involving imperial measurement. So, imperial measurement is something that is primarily used in the US nowadays, but the imperial part of that refers to the British Empire. That's where it was defined. The idea of measuring tools and developing things like rulers and weight scales to measure quantities and distances is not new. That's been around for thousands of years. In fact, several thousand years ago, the Greeks and the Romans they had developed a system of weights and distance measures that used objects that were readily at hand, and a lot of them were based on parts of the human body, because a person could use their hands or their feet to measure distances and get a fairly reasonable estimate of the length if they were measuring something out like a garden or a plot of land. So in that ancient system, there were inches, which in French is called pouce, which a pouce is a thumb. So you can picture, long time ago, before rulers existed that were all neatly lined and mapped out, that a person could measure using their thumbs and stack thumb after thumb like this and count, okay, that's 5 thumbs wide, or that's 2 thumbs wide, or 2 thumbs high. And we still talk about that when measuring drinks. Actually, bartenders will talk about, filling a glass so that it is 2 fingers or 3 fingers, for example. So we still use that kind of body measurement, but this is more precise, and it's been nailed down probably since about 60 years ago. 1959, I think it was, is when officially the distances were measured out, and they were actually defined compared to the metric system to say, okay, an inch is how many centimeters, for example. So the piece that we need to be aware of for solving these two problems, we're going to be talking about feet and inches. And this ruler that I've got out here is a 1 foot ruler. It's got 12 inches on it. So 1 foot is 12 inches. So back in the time when people were actually using their feet and their thumbs, you could interpret that as your foot is 12 of your thumb widths. So if you were to trace that out, you could see how proportional you are based on that. Problem with using your actual thumb or your actual foot is that everybody's body pieces, their feet and their arms and legs and everything, they're different. They're different lengths, they're different sizes. So you'd have inconsistent measurement if you were using your own foot, for example, to measure. So that's where rulers came in. Now, I'm not sure if you're wondering about these little beans, but one of the ways, starting about 500 years ago, that was used to define an inch, rather than using a thumb, because there's a great amount of variety in the size of people's thumbs, was to use 3 barley grains. And these are actually little red beans, but they're about the same size. So you can see that when I put those 3 in a row, okay, the distance of those 3 little beans is an inch. It's going from the 7 to the 8. Okay, and that was a more consistent measure. The size of those objects doesn't vary as much as the size of a thumb. Okay, that was just a little fun history lesson there. Okay, the first problem involves someone who is designing a garden, and they're putting a fence around the garden. And the information that you're given to work with is that it's rectangular in shape, and that one side of this garden is 12 feet 8 inches. You can see that single hash mark for the feet and the double hash mark for the inches. And then the other dimension is 4 feet 6 inches. And you're being asked to find what's the total distance around. How much fencing would you need to go around the perimeter of that garden? So I'm actually going to split off the feet and the inches separately. So if I was measuring around the perimeter, I would have 12 feet 8 inches twice, and I would have 4 feet 6 inches twice, like that. And I need to add that all together. There's a bit of a conversion that I'm going to have to do. So right here, I've got two 6-inch pieces. When you put two measurements of 6 inches together, that's 12 inches. So that means that those two together are 1 foot. And then these other two 8-inch pieces, 8 and 8, that's 16 inches, which I can break that up into, that's 1 foot, a group of 12, and 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 inches left over. Okay, so now I'm ready to add up all my feet, and then I've got this 4 inches left. So I've got 12 and 12, 4 and 4, 1 and 1. I get 34 feet. And I still have that extra 4 inches. So I would write it like that. And sometimes the mistake that students make is they try and enter these in a calculator as a decimal value, as 12.8. That's not correct, because it's not 8 out of 10, it's 8 out of 12. So if you were wanting to use decimals to solve this problem, before you can do that, you've got to take your inches, I think 8 out of 12, and convert that fraction into a decimal. So 8 out of 12 is 2/3. As a decimal, that's 0.6 repeating. My 6 inches is a half, so 6 out of 12 is a half. Okay, so if I want to look at that, I'm going half plus a half is 1. That makes sense. And here I've got 0.6 repeating plus 0.6 repeating. Is 1 1/3, and that's what this 1 foot 4 inches is. It's 1 foot, and 4 inches is 1/3 of a foot. So in the end, this is the perimeter of that garden. All right, second question, kind of similar. It's also a rectangular shape. I'm not drawing this to scale. So we've got one side of the rectangle is 25 foot 8 inches, and the other dimension is 8 foot 8 inches, like that. And then the additional piece of this problem that was given is that you're going to be removing a section that will be a gate, that will give you access to this space. And the gate, we'll put it in here, let's say, is 3 feet 6 inches wide. So the way that I would tackle this one is I would use a similar process to above and find the entire perimeter of fencing, and then I would remove that 3 foot 6 or 3.5 feet. So it may help when you're solving this kind of problem to convert 3 foot 6 inches, for example, into 3.5 feet, because there's 12 inches in a foot, so 6 inches is half a foot. Okay. All right, so let's look at our distance around. We got 25 feet 8 inches twice. I've got 8 foot 8 twice. that up. "50, 66 feet." And here I've got 4 times 8, which is 32. 32 inches is more than a foot, so I'm actually going to take away 12s from this 32 and add them as feet to the 66. So if I take away one group of 12 from this 32, it's going to take me down to 20 inches, and I'm going to add a foot onto this measure. 20 is still more than 12, so I'm going to take away another 12 from that. That takes me down to 8. And this moves up 1 foot to 68. So this is my blue perimeter all the way around the garden, is 68 feet 8 inches. And now I'm going to remove my 3 foot 6 inches of gate from that distance. So I've got 68 feet 8 inches, and I'm subtracting 3 feet 6 inches. And conveniently, I'm able to do that each piece at a time. So I can go 68 minus 3 is 65. And 8 inches minus 6 inches is 2 inches. So that's the answer for this one.